unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Depth, brought to you by Souls and Liberty in partnership with MyPillow.com. Just before we begin, you're watching the premiere presentation, cool set, huh? Of our new and improved In Depth, enhanced to be able to tackle the post-election madness that's going to most assuredly be part of the landscape for Trump's second term, probably for all 4 years, brought to you by the DC deep state Marxist. Remember, when Trump said, fight, 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 that counts for more than just the election. Counts for now, because now the hard part begins. Today, we're going to be looking at justice, and not just how the campaign and the election had that theme as the giant undercurrent, the subtext of it, but how Trump's administration is going to be all down about justice being administered. Remember, justice appeals to the human soul because the desire for it has been placed there by God himself as a path back to him. That's why on the last day, Jesus comes back as Savior, does not come back as Savior, Redeemer, Messiah. He comes back as judge to set straight all that has been unjust in this life through all of history, everything. Kind of a frightening thought. It's kind of why they call it the last day. Before we get to that, however, we want to share a little short video with you that sums up the upside down clown world that the communists wanted to create. We're like this close to it, but they haven't given up trying. They never stop fighting, even when they're completely crazy. And they experienced an election day mauling. Here we have it right here. Please take a look at it.
She's breastfeeding.
No, sir, breastfeeding is allowed here on this airline. We do allow this.
But it's a cat.
It's a cat.
It's not a child. It's not a baby. It's a cat. Breastfeeding a cat.
He seems to think it's a
cat. A cat.
Baby.
Yeah, that's our baby.
No, it's I
You have a cat?
No, it's not on the cat.
She's breastfeeding a cat. It's disgusting.
Please, I'm asking you, just show me that you have a baby.
Go ahead, take the blanket off if you're that sure. He's filming you do this, by the way.
Yes, you gave him permission.
What?
He will take.
I
the
never gave him
off.
permission.
You said go ahead and take the blanket off. So
It's a cat. It is a cat.
I
told you. I told
What
you.
is that?
It's a
What? She has a cat.
It's an emergency
She has a
service
cat.
animal, and it's a lynx, not a cat. There's
lynx?
a big difference.
There's a lynx. It's a
What
lynx.
is
what is it?
It's an emergency service emotional support animal.
Oh,
Oh.
I believe that's
Well, that's
part of the
allowed.
regulation.
Yeah,
is allowed.
that's allowed.
Okay.
That's all.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Gotta love the face masks and that. Joining us now to break down that video for just a moment, Souls and Liberty contributor, Claver Kamau Imani. Claver, I mean, come on. You know what's hysterical about that is the world is so completely screwy, thank you, communists, that you could have believed everything until like the last 2 seconds of that video. It actually seemed completely real.
American air transportation is nutty. And to troll the ridiculousness of government overreach to the point where you can't breastfeed a baby, but you can breastfeed a cat, and then you can. then they're wearing. But back in the COVID days, man. I mean, you remember the mask. It reminds you of all the stupidity, the panic, the hilarious speculation and orders, but also the tragedy of people losing their jobs or getting needled and all the stuff like that.
It was crazy.
But remember in the days of COVID when everybody was mandated to wear a mask, and you're in an airplane which has the purest air that you can possibly breathe as a human being.
Okay, so here's a funny story. I don't know, within the first like 2 weeks or something, I think it was, of air travel going back, I had to fly somewhere, and there were like 4 people on the plane. That's probably not quite that few, but whatever. Everybody had their own row on both sides of the aisle, and I was laying down. It was a really early morning flight. I was laying down with my head against the window side, and I had my jacket over me, just over my, because I wanted to go to sleep. It was a really early morning flight. A flight attendant came by, kept shaking me, finally woke, or, got me to pay. I took I had a jacket over my head laying down. And and she says to me, excuse me, sir, you have to put your mask on. That's an FAA mandate. And I looked at her like she had 8 heads, which is probably an insult to all those other people who might have 8 heads. Like, what? I've got a coat over my head. And she said, I'm sorry, sir, you have to. So I put the mask on. And of course, as soon as she walked away, I pulled the mask right back down, kept the jacket over me. This is the idiocy. That's why that video, the cat breastfeeding thing, is actually believable. I don't know if it's true or if the whole thing was just some big droll with a bunch of friends somewhere. I have no idea. But the point is,
I got a better one for you.
Go ahead, yours.
Okay. All right. So, just at the end of the COVID era, okay, we right before Biden, or right after Biden went to office, we went on a trip to Italy, and we were on Air Canada. And of course, down here, the mask mandates had already been gone, back to business as usual, back to school and everything. And so we're in line on the jetway to take our seats on an Air Canada flight overseas to Milan. And they still had the mandates for the mask on Air Canada, on United, but the one for Air Canada, we're sitting on the jetway, and one of the flight attendants comes by asking if people had masks. We didn't have one. We didn't bring our mask. We're leaving Texas. And they had prepackaged masks. Like you have prepackaged plasticware. Somebody was making money off of that. How does somebody all of a sudden is putting paper mask in plastic bags like you put, in a takeaway for barbecue or something, You're
and
taking
dang
away
it, Claver, what about the environment? Plastic bags. Come on.
Plastic, and had them handing it out. That means they were somebody was in the mask bagging business. Somebody was making money, and Trudeau wasn't about to take, or the FAA wasn't about to take that money off of the table. Somebody was making money off of the stupid mask. That's the first thing that hit me. Wait a minute. This is like that. I just left Popeye's chicken. What is this?
It's crazy. All right, there's enough of that stuff. We'll get to the. I thought we would just get a kick out of that because it's a hysterical video. It's got 2.5 or 3 million views already. As soon as I saw it, people got to see this. It's tremendous.
That's one of my prayers. That's one of my longest enduring prayers is, please, Lord, deliver me from American commercial air transportation. Please make me rich enough to where I can have my own jet, or at least be able to rent a jet or something. I got to get away from that mess. It's awful.
I certainly hope by that, Claver, you do not mean that any mask mandates you would not be following on your own private jet. But we'll leave that. We don't want a video record of that anywhere. So, all right. Now we're going to turn to the story about Hunter's pardon and the many subtexts that are present there. And there are many, Claver, as you know. First, I want to show you a little video here about all of the lies in advance of Biden and the pardon.
Second one, would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
Okay. Let me go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Again, you've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute the sentences for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
All right, Claver, let's talk about this, sir. The Democrats are the first ones to always be whining and carrying on. Oh, no means no. No means no. Well, doesn't seem to mean no when you want it to mean yes.
Is this a surprise to anyone? I mean, we can talk about the reaction to the reaction, but is this a surprise to anyone? Everybody knew that what was coming out of the administration, every mouth in the administration, especially KJP, I can't wait till she's gone. That eye makeup just crushes me every day. I'm like, I can't look at it. But
I kind of think the
Everybody
hairdo, that hairdo's kind of cool, though. You gotta say.
But the makeup, man, the makeup scheme, it needs serious work, and it needs a renovation. It's bad. But did anybody believe these people? And that's what they traffic in. It's misinformation, disinformation, or just flat out lie.
Yep.
Everybody knew whether Biden had made it to the finish line to the election. He was the nominee. Everybody knew that the gig was up. He was going to pardon his son. I'm a loving father, whatever. It has turned a lot of people off what he's done. It's opened a lot of eyes. As many times as JP said, no. I never believed him. You never believed him.
Especially that insistent one at the end when she's following up with the reporter and she's like, "We have said it before, during, after. We will continue to say it is the only response." Blah blah blah. Like shuts down the thing. And now what's funny is he does the pardon. They've put a lid on White House press briefings. There aren't any until Biden comes back from Africa. Where he's gone, I think, for 11 days or 9 days, whatever it is or something. So he drops the pardon. They shut down the White House press briefings. He hops on a plane and goes to Africa. That might have worked 10 years ago, but now there's social media. And here we are talking about it on social media. And because of that narrative switch in social media, now you have Democrats forced to go on, their regular legacy media things and try to make, apologies and this and explanations of why and Trump sucks, and every single thing always gets back to, well, yeah, but Trump sucks. But they wouldn't be doing this if social media wasn't a thing. So this is an opportunity, as we're doing right here. That's an opportunity for social media, patriots, conservatives, Christians, the whole lot of us, to jump on now and hammer this home. This is, you wonder how much is Biden kind of clued into. I don't really think he cares. Pardoning, Hunter.
Well,
I think he doesn't care about the
this
damage he's causing to his own party, because he's basically, screw you. You committed a coup against me. I'll do whatever the hell I want.
Look, first of all, the first presidential election I remember as a kid was Nixon-Humphrey. Okay. I've never seen a president give less access, less press conferences, make less statements about policy or anything personal than Joe Biden. And one of the very few things that he would say, one of the very few things he would answer when he would answer a question is, are you going to pardon Hunter? And his answer, the few times he speaks to the media, was one word: no.
Yeah.
Sir, do you still plan to not pardon your son? I'm not going to pardon him. No, I will not pardon him. It was the only one of the questions ever shouted to him over a jet engine that he would answer. No, I'm not going to. But everybody knew he was. Yeah. You knew it. I knew it. Everybody at Souls and Liberty knew it. Anybody that's watched the operations, the modus operandi of the Democrat Party, understood he was lying the whole time. So why are you acting shocked? And the Democrats are just flailing. They don't know what to do after this. After Trump just spanked their cookies, they don't know.
It does.
Right?
It does seem kind of crazy that, given Joe Biden's history, and given the fact that, they're all so quick right there to say, well, I understand why he did this. It's his son. What good father wouldn't come protect his son? Like, well, why weren't you all thinking that before 24 hours, 48 hours ago, whenever it was, before he released the pardon on Sunday? But
I don't think everybody.
But Biden's history, it deserves, a little focusing in on, because, look, what many people have forgotten is that Biden built his entire career on lies. He even had to drop out of the Democratic primary in 1988 when he got busted for it. Take a look at this.
Democratic presidential candidate Joseph Biden today faces a controversy. 3 weeks ago at a debate at the Iowa State Fair, he used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family, in 1,000 generations, to be able to get the university.
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania and come up after 12 hours and play football.
8 hours underground, and then come up and play football.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
There was no platform upon which they could stand.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
You know, I was thinking on the way over here. Now, that's a little too much, because, as you point out, what's behind the words? What's there? And a lot of people, the rap on Biden has always been that it's just a surface.
I should have said, to paraphrase Neil Kinnock, it's the only time I didn't, and all the times I've ever used it.
But CBS News found a tape of a second instance.
It reappeared in the New York Times with a new charge, that Biden had appropriated a famous litany from the late Robert Kennedy about what the gross national product cannot measure.
It cannot measure the health of our children,
The health of our children,
the quality of our education,
the quality of their education,
the joy of their play,
or the joy of their play.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit. He has also quoted or paraphrased John Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, all without credit.
Joseph Biden admitted today that he committed plagiarism when he was in law school. He said it was a mistake, but that it was unintentional.
He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
He was given an F.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
To the political community in Washington, it all seems of a piece. Plagiarism at law school, plagiarism on the stump.
The great communicator. Strike that. The great imitator.
You don't steal verbatim, or when you do, as he did 99% of the time, you give credit.
Biden's critics say he sells himself as a man whose words and visions can inspire a new generation in politics. But if the thoughts, phrases, and visions really belong to others, it's a form of false advertising.
Senator Joseph Biden may have more explaining to do.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and, in fact, ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
All right, Claver, Biden's never been an honest man, even especially about his Catholicism, but his politics, everything. He lied, plagiarized, you name it. Let me ask you, did you notice how the media back then, in that whole clip we just showed, the media back then kind of exposed him, but during 2020 and then this whole term, they actually covered up for him. That's an interesting and telling contrast. Talk to us about that for a second.
I remember 1988 and the plagiarism, and I mean, literally word for word, giving the speech that Neil Kinnock gave. I mean, not even trying to change it up at all, just literally verbatim the speech. It was nuts, and we couldn't believe it. But that's who he's always been.
He's a con man.
You mentioned
he's a con man.
Yeah, the social media aspect of it. Getting back to the pardon just for a second, do you think the American people would even know that he pardoned Hunter if all they had was legacy media at this point, from what we've seen legacy media over the last 15 years? Do you think the American people would even know that he pardoned Hunter Biden? They would have never known about the laptop, the whole 9 yards, if it wasn't for the power of the people through social media, which we rely on and which we're relying on this program. Would they even know?
No, they wouldn't.
This is his history. And when he ran in 2020, the legacy media would not bring up that history of him having to drop out, getting caught in for plagiarizing a couple of times, not just once. It was several times. He just straight out plagiarized. Like, you can't afford a speechwriter, dude.
Well, remember during the debate with Trump and Biden, at the end of June, which caused him to essentially blow up and initiate the coup proceedings on the part of Obama and company. Trump came right after him and said, "No, you lied. You lied that you finished in the top, whatever it was, of your law class. You're down near the bottom." I mean, it's just one thing after another, as we saw there in that previous clip. He's a con man, and I think it's a very good point. Had there not been social media, the advent, and now in the advent season, the advent and essentially taking over of the media world by social media, you're right. I think this would have been maybe a mention for
and more balanced.
Sake.
Yeah, and more balanced network or cable news coverage. For instance, let's say the fact that now Newsweek is destroying CNN in the ratings.
Newsmax.
MS. Yeah. Excuse me. I said Newsweek. I meant Newsmax. Excuse me.
Newsmax, which is sitting like we're sitting here, actually has gotten more viewers in the prized demographic. Of the 25 to 54 year old,
no money
than CNN.
Yeah, no, they don't spend money on fancy sets and graphics. They don't have they don't do what Fox does. Fox is more of a conglomerate, so they have a lot more financial power to make all the pretty sets and the fancy graphics and stuff like that. Newsmax doesn't do that, and we don't do that here at Souls and Liberty. We just come here and tell you the truth and try to reveal something to you that you may not have known before, or give you a different perspective or a different point of view to make you think a little bit more about the issues that are happening in our world globally right now. That's how we operate. I think that's why we're on the right track. You cannot trust legacy media anymore. MSDNC, and I was the first person to say that, not Trump, not Hannity, and I said it on MSDNC when Martin Bashir was working back there in 2011.
Yep.
They're on the chopping block.
Sure.
They can't make money. And Comcast, which is a leftist organization, is trying to spin them off, or trying to spit them out more accurately, get rid of them.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing as far as context is concerned, as far as content creation and more center-right networks on cable television, that's where the audience is going. And you're seeing it in the ratings. Just like you saw a demographic shift in the election this year, where Trump picked up voters in all categories, all demographic categories. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But that's what's happening in media now. People are opening their eyes, social media, so that more Latinos, more Catholics, more Blacks, more women are actually seeing the truth and looking through the cat breastfeeding story and making the decision, this is phony, this is fake, this is disinformation, this is misinformation, based on what I'm able to glean, what I am able to harvest for myself now. And so the lefties are losing all over the place. They're literally, their employment is in jeopardy because of how they've performed and misled the American audience.
Yeah, credibility is the name of the game, and these guys gave it up. It just, I thought this was a pretty interesting take as well. You sort of combing through concerns about justice and lying, hypocrisy. It comes from ESPN commentator Stephen Smith. Now, he's not exactly a conservative MAGA he's been more and more politically outspoken, however, since Biden, really kind of came onto the scene. Maybe not back in 2020, but by the time we got to late 21, early 22, Stephen Smith, again, certainly not what you could consider a conservative. He gets right into this about the whole pardon, and he makes what I think is a really good point that we'll get your take on as soon as we come back from this. Go ahead.
What's your take on the pardon? The Biden situation disgusted me in terms of the pardon only from this standpoint, Chris. Nobody on the planet, you want to be a cynic and you want to act like you would be offended by something like that if you're one of those people out there, fine. But no one within reason would have a problem with him saying, it's my son. I love him. There's no way I'm sending him to jail. And I have the power to avoid it. Nobody would blame him for that. But that's not where he went. So I didn't have a problem to answer your question directly with the decision that he made to pardon his son. Boo Boo the Fool knew he was going to do that. I don't care who he stood in front of or sat in front of and said that he wasn't going to pardon his son and he was just going to go by the letter of the law. Please, everybody and their grandmother knew he was going to pardon his son. But to come out and to start talking about how it's been a witch hunt and the Department of Justice and others were after him or whoever it was, and, you know, the GOP rather was after him. Well, wait a minute. What have y'all been doing with Donald Trump all of these years? Now, you can make an argument about the legitimacy of the cases against Donald Trump compared to what wasn't legitimate, et cetera. That's not the point. The point is it was clearly politicized. You had folks on the left who were hell-bent on going after Donald Trump because they were determined to make sure that he couldn't run for re-election or that these elements would get in the way of him possibly winning re-election. And now we know why more than ever, because they weren't confident they would ever be able to beat him. He'd been a Republican nominee since 2016. He beat Hillary Clinton with the Electoral College vote. He wouldn't concede defeat in 2020, but he did receive over 74 million votes at that particular moment in time. And then you fast forward 4 years later, despite the 34 felony convictions, the 2 impeachments, the bevy of crimes that he had been accused of, the Republican voters out there, the conservative voters out there, and a lot of independents from various communities said, he's the guy we want, and I've said it on many, many occasions. It wasn't about him. Just like it wasn't about Biden in 2020, it was more against Trump. In this particular instance, it was an indictment against the Biden administration, what had been going on for the last 4 years. Some of the things going on with the border, obviously inflation, of course, crime in the streets, of course, woke and cancel culture and all of that, it all played a role. And so for him to come out and to talk about that this was a witch hunt when clearly it could be argued that's exactly what you were doing to Donald Trump or you assisted in doing seems beyond hypocritical. And that was what disgusted me. It wasn't his decision. It wasn't him pardoning his son. It was the weak, pathetic explanation that he gave, which has most critics just shaking their heads and raising their eyebrows and saying, what nerve you have.
All right, Claver, that's Stephen Smith of ESPN. Again, nobody would ever accuse him of being a conservative, but that's a really interesting take.
I don't know. I don't know these days.
Oh, true.
GMV. I think he's been red pilled. I mean, not just that take that was on CNN, but when he was on Bill Maher's quote unquote podcast, you know, where they're enjoying, you know, adult beverages and hippie lettuce. But he was very critical of the Democrat. I think he's been red pilled. I really do. I saw some footage today on X where Black residents in Chicago were literally threatening Brandon Johnson, the mayor, wearing their red gear and saying, dude, you said you weren't going to blink when it comes to Trump, but we're not going to blink. You know, and one lady begging Trump and Holman to come to Chicago first. Every person in the clip that lined up for citizens' time to talk to the mayor to face the seat of power, they were all Black.
Yep. And
some of them were wearing MAGA gear, and they were very vociferous, very aggressive. And I think Stephen A. Smith is sort of the mascot of the blindfold falling off voters of color and voters of faith.
That's
when you see the kind of numbers Trump got with the Catholics, the numbers he got with Black men, the numbers he got with suburban women, I mean, the numbers he got with the youth vote, I mean, literally picked up demographic, gained numbers in every gained numbers in Chicago, this city council meeting where they just shredded Brandon Johnson. Even in Chicago, every big blue city in the nation, Trump and the Republican Party gained votes. That's
not just
LA,
every city, every state shifted more red, even the blue states. Every county, 6,800.
Every county.
Every
went
single
to the
county
right.
went more
in the country
to the right, except one, I believe,
that's
was
right.
in Colorado somewhere where, you know,
that's right.
Probably all high.
Every county on the Rio Grande was won by Trump except for 3. Only 3 counties in the Rio Grande Valley that touched the Rio Grande Bank's touch.
Right.
All of them, except 3, went for Trump here in Texas.
People are sick of being gaslighted. They're sick of, which goes to justice, because you deserve the truth from your political leaders, but they're sick of the lies, the cons, the consequences of these policies. And look, it's not just gas and eggs. I mean, that's not the deal. It is certainly that. That may be like what wakes you up and goes, wow, I just had to put $100 of gas in my truck or whatever it was. Last year I only had to put in 50. To fill it up. But those are the consequences. But then you kind of, you need a little slap across the face, and people's shrinking pocketbooks, their wallets, is that slap across the face. And they start paying attention. Hey, what the hell's going on here? What is it? Hey, what do you mean there's like transvestite surgeries going on in, transsexual surgeries going on in prisons with illegal immigrants? And who the hell's promoting all this? And all of a sudden, all the thing starts to unravel from them. And it's interesting, Jamie Raskin, Congressman Jamie Raskin, piece of work if there ever was one. He was on, one of the legacy media things, and I was actually kind of surprised that how they kind of went after him on the no. Like, Biden said no. So what do you think here? And he actually, he's normally very well kind of put together on this, but he actually begins to dissemble and like fall apart when he gets pressed. And converts to, Kamala's word salad. Take a peek at this right now.
Do you think President Biden should pardon Hunter Biden?
So there are lots of claims of political prosecution and political.
And was Hunter politically?
Well, I mean, obviously that's a judicial point, and you've got to look at what the evidence is. And I don't know enough.
So should the president pardon him?
I mean, again, that is a unilateral executive power that.
And should he use it?
Well. The power exists for the president to show mercy for people.
All right, Claver, it's kind of fun for us to be getting a civics tutorial from Jamie Raskin. I mean, give me a break here.
On the Daily Show, right? On the Daily Show.
What do you think?
And you can hear the laughter in the background from the audience, because they would recognize a Kamala Harris word salad coming from, this dope named Jamie Raskin, right?
Yeah.
Bless his soul, for surviving cancer. But the beautiful thing, the thing that's music to my ears, is people are literally calling out the Democrat Party, whether it's Stephen A. Smith, whether it's black voters in Chicago. They're saying, it's you Democrats. We're tired of you. And now they're getting roasted by comedians that have been identified as leftist.
Yeah.
Some of the comments that Bill Maher has made towards the Democrat Party.
Just going to say that.
Astounding. Okay. But they're calling them out. They says, guys, you have to have some sort of change. Your brand has been soiled. The Democrat brand it's in the toilet. It needs to be flushed.
Yeah.
And I don't think they have the nobody likes. There used to be the cool party, right? All the celebrities, the movie stars. You had to be a Democrat because the Democrats were the cool kids. That's the cool party. Not anymore. People are literally turning away and showing disdain to the Democrat Party. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, they're calling them out.
Great. They've
when you have
been
black
liars and
citizens
cheats
in
and
Chicago,
common and killers and thieves. And I mean, there's no epitaph you can't put on these guys that would overstate, their chicanery, their shenanigans, their treachery, root word there, treason. Pay attention to that word as we get into post January 20th in about 50 days or so. But, one of the things I think in the whole Hunter pardon story that a lot of people, so much stuff happens all the time. It's really hard to keep track of, every little, cog in the wheel and everything else, because it is a machine. It's really hard to keep track of that, which is why we like people coming here, because we do keep track of it. And we keep track of it from a whole kind of different perspective than other people keep track of it. But one of the things I think that was galling in all of this, and there's a lot to be galled over, is the whole Ukraine connection. Hunter, Joe, Ukraine. And that opens up the larger question of the Biden family crime spree, of which Hunter and Joe, father and son, worked in tandem. Remember this now, go way back. Hunter was on the board of the Ukrainian gas company Burisma, crooked as hell, that company. Joe, at the time, was Obama's Veep. The Ukrainian government began investigating Burisma when Hunter was on the board, which would have necessarily exposed Hunter and his influence and the influence in peddling he was doing of his father. A special prosecutor was appointed by the Ukrainians, and then Joe Biden swooped in as vice president, sitting vice president. He swooped in again to protect his criminal son, just like he's done as president now, protecting it. Now, remember this.
They made, I'll give you one concrete example. I was, not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time. Well, they made some genuine, substantial changes institutionally and with people. But in one of the three institutions, there's now some backsliding.
The courts are
there, and yes, and they had made that commitment that they wouldn't do that.
So Klaver, he got the Ukrainian prosecutor essentially extorted or blackmailed the Ukrainian government to get rid of the prosecutor who would have exposed his son, and he used U.S. tax dollars as the carrot stick to get rid of him. That was just, and then he's chuckling about it there. He's chuckling about it there on the stage when he's asked him. He's like, well, I gave him 6 hours, and there's $1 billion, and you can pick up the phone and call my boss if you want. I mean, you talk about on top of all of their chicane, the arrogance that's always displayed by these Marxist SOBs. It's off the charts.
Hubris, unimaginable. The thing I really think people should be excited about, especially as Trump makes these appointments or nominations for his cabinet. And I do think all of them are going to go through. Pete Hegseth, I think Tulsi, I think all of them, I think are going to make it. But I think all the stuff the Republicans have been trying to reveal to Americans since Biden took office, or even before Biden took office, we're finally going to get that information. The Chinese money, for instance, what was he doing in Mexico? What was he doing? All these different countries, apparently, that he was doing business with in the Biden family. And don't forget the brother. The brother was in it too. His brother was in it too. I mean, where do they get these millions of dollars from to have beachfront homes in Delaware?
Yeah.
I mean, where do they get this money from? They had no businesses, no enterprise.
Nothing.
Where do they get all this money from?
Obama has 4 mansions. The cheapest of one is there in D.C. that's like $5 million. Where the hell did he get all that money?
At least they can point to, well, we had a deal with Apple Television, we had a deal with Netflix, we did this, we did that, or whatever. They can go to that. The Bidens can't. It's the entire family is a crime syndicate.
Yep.
Why are the grandkids getting money?
Right.
Why is Beau Biden's widow and Hunter's mistress? Why is she getting money, 5 and 6 figures? I think all the stuff that congressional oversight, congressional justice committee, with Jordan and all those guys, they're going to get all the information that they want. Cash is going to give them all the information that they want. Is it Ratcliffe that's going to be CIA director? They're going to get all the information. Tulsi is.
That's why they're going nuts. That's why the Marxists are losing their minds on all of this.
Yeah, that's why the DNI, Tulsi, they're coming in with a single-mindedness, and the American people should be absolutely excited.
Sure.
All the stuff that Congress has been trying, the Finance Committee, the Justice Committee, the Oversight Committee, all the subpoenas that were being denied, the massive, what do you call it when you blacking out the information, the redacting,
Yep.
all those, all that redacting, mass redacting, getting whole sheets that are emails and stuff that are
the only word not
black
redacted
paper.
is the.
Or of or but. Okay.
Yeah.
But we all the stuff that went on in the 2016 election, all the stuff Comey did, all the stuff
go to more of the point of all this, Claver. We still don't know anything about the Butler shooting. I mean, what is that, 4 or 5 months ago now? Like, what happened? Where's the files?
The Catholic Church shooting, the transgender shooting that
all
went
of
on,
it.
mass
We know
shooting.
nothing about anything.
We get nothing
and they constantly
about
go on about this, like, oh, it's classified, it's classified, it's classified. We're going to get into that later in the show when we bring Arthur on specifically about that.
Can't
point.
wait for the Biden crime family to get out of there. I can't wait to see the backs of the Biden crime family. That's what they are. The Delaware Biden crime family.
Well, remember the Ukraine connection is important because that's where everything sort of revolves around. And what are we doing right now? Sending billions to Ukraine. They just passed a thing yesterday or the day before on Capitol Hill and said, hey, we're going to make this one last giant $75 billion or whatever it is, expense report paid to sorry, earpiece problems here. Paid to Ukraine and Zelensky and all of that. But here's the funny thing. I want to wrap up with this this part of our show. Remember that Nancy Pelosi's first cause of impeachment articles against Trump was Trump placing a phone call to the Ukraine looking into, drum roll please, Hunter's crimes and Joe's covering up of them. Claver, final thoughts on that.
And that's when they began targeting Giuliani, because Giuliani was part of trying to find out what was going on there. We've seen they've bankrupted him. If there's any type of political retribution, any political targeting that's been going on, it's been dominated by the left. It's been dominated by the Marxists, the communists who believe in big government, who believe in a police state, who believe that you can lie to your constituents, who don't believe that God is God and rules everything. They believe government is God and going to tell you everything that you can and cannot do, what you must buy, what you cannot buy. And a lot of people, a lot of Americans are waking up and they don't like it. That was the start of it. If anybody is guilty and deserves questioning their allegiance to this country versus being a traitor, it's whomever's operating on the left. It's whomever's operating in the Democrat Party. That's their modus operandi, and they are losing. I'm repeating myself here, but their brand is toast. Nobody likes them anymore. They're not the cool kids at the party anymore.
No, they're not. They're sort of roundly detested a little bit, and they're pretending it's all messaging and this and that. But I think it's a little bit more than messaging. I think it's the message, but something we can talk about later.
A huge portion has quite a thick, deep disdain for the party now. Thanks, GMB, for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, brother. We're going to, of course, have you back on a regular basis and soon, so we appreciate it. Thanks, man. All right, speaking of justice and lack thereof, we came across this meme earlier today, which is something to reflect on, and it's a pretty good summary of what things are. Take a look at this. That's just how preposterous things have become. Hunter never got raided. 18-year-old at the time, 17-year-old Barron Trump had his bedroom turned topsy-turvy. It's insane. It's insane. When we come back, we're going to pivot from that meme about the FBI to the Marxist uproar over Trump's nominee to head the FBI, Kash Patel. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Because of your overwhelming support, our $14.88 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing. Including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
Right, administering justice requires individuals to actually do the administration of it. Enter, from stage right, Kash Patel. Listen to this interview with him by Glenn Beck.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI.
But who? That is that. I mean, there's.
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school.
Yeah.
We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said, this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation. All these local law enforcement communities get funding from the DOJ and FBI for local programs. And if you don't cooperate, you're not getting your $1 million for this, and you're not getting and that's a lot of money to these local districts. That's how they play the game. That's why you don't have a Black Book. Or the manifesto.
But the Black Book, it's not just sitting. I mean, that's Hoover power times 10.
And to me, that's a thing I think President Trump should run on. On day one, roll out the Black Book. And not just that. On day one, roll out all of the text messaging communications we were told were deleted. On day one, play the rest of the video of the pipe bomber. On day, one of the reforms I talk about in government gangsters is you need a central node to be continuously declassifying. This is another thing they do. They overclassify. And I'm telling you, as a former number 2 in the IC, they overclassify 50% of the stuff there to protect the deep state. Oh, no, you can't see that. Nothing to see here. Gina was a master at it, of doing it. And we still haven't seen half of the Russiagate report that we wrote. Still under lock and key. On how the ICA was originally constructed. We put 10,000 man-hours against John Brennan's team that did it. And we found out why they came up with their bogus conclusion. But we couldn't sell it to the world because we couldn't talk about it, and the government gangsters came in and buried it. All of these things, there needs to be a continuing central power, whether it's the White House or offsite, that says every request that comes in, just right out the door, as long as it's not a major threat to national security.
All right, Patel served in Trump 1.0 and is hell-bent on bringing justice in 2.0. And that's why the entire Marxist deep state is increasingly in a panic. Take a listen to this. Washington Post columnist and deep state mouthpiece David Ignatius.
And I think what's of concern when you think about him as FBI director is the FBI director has extraordinary powers to conduct surveillance on American citizens. And those powers to listen into phone calls, to read mail, so to speak, would be directed by somebody who has shown that he has a very political agenda. And as you said, in his book, he had an enemies list.
All right, blah, 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 blah. Joining us now to talk about all of this, but the even larger canvas of justice that it's all being painted on is Souls and Liberty fellow contributor, Arthur Clareau. Hey, Arthur, how you doing, brother?
Pretty good, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. Listen, from Attorney General to Director of the FBI, the deep staters look, they're losing their minds. I think they're actually losing their minds for a pretty good reason. I think a bunch of these people should just reserve flights on these same seats on these same flights all the Hollywood celebs are fleeing the country from, because, these people are, the Cashes and the other Trump nominees, they're coming after them, and they should.
Well, just wait until this change, this kind of revolution reaches Canada and the UK and Australia and all the places they want to go to. And all they have left is Kazakhstan or, some of those places. Sorry, Kazakhstan. It's going to catch up with them.
Yeah, I mean, what did Kazakhstan ever do to get all these guys, all these Marxist, Democrats dumped in them? They didn't do anything. They're just out there with the sheep and stuff.
Yeah, no, 100%. They've sown the wind. They're reaping the whirlwind. It's as simple as that, right? And it's understandable, and they're understandably afraid. I don't know what to say. It's just one of those things where, duh, what did you expect? It's going to come back. It's the whole, if you're going to go after the king, you better get rid of the king. And if he comes back, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. That's kind of what it is here, and there's something quasi prophetic in all of that. When you're looking at the temperature in DC these days, everybody over there is going to need like deep therapy. In the swamp, it's raging between rage and fear, like deep fear. We want to blow things up like we did in Trump 1 with help of Obama. But, those conditions aren't the same conditions that exist today. The temperament of the Marxists in DC, that's still there. But they were able to sort of do whatever it was they needed to do because of two main things, which don't exist anymore. One was the control of the media narrative. Russia, 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 Russia. Never shut up about it for 3 years. And that Trump got caught. He was blindsided. He knew there was a deep state. He talked about it all the time. But he had no idea how powerful it was. Remember, it was Chuck Schumer who sat there, and I think it was on Face the Nation, and said, you go after the intelligence community in this country, and they've got six ways of, from Sunday to get back at you. Maybe they're not going to have them. If Tulsi Gabbard is DNI and Kash Patel is FBI and Pam Bondi or whoever it is going to be AG, those agencies are about to be blown up, and you're seeing all over social media. I'm going to resign. If this guy's the thing, I'm going to resign. I'm out of here. I mean, some giant number of attorneys in the U.S. Department of Justice, federal attorneys, said, if this happens, I'm resigning. I'm like, good. That makes life much simpler than you sticking around and having to go through all the preambles of having to, fire you and your unions and all that. This is Elon keeps tweeting out, the hammer is coming. That's a great thing to read just about every day.
Yeah. There's something to all of this, though, that I think needs to be kept in mind. Yeah, and this is probably the Canadian, the British, the whole, that side of things. So bear with me for a moment on this. Whenever you have revolution, whenever you have big change, you have to be very, very careful that you're not ripping up Chesterton's fences, right? You're not taking out things that should be there, but in your glee and in your joy at destroying the enemy, you end up making a bigger mess. And I think that's something that Americans really need to keep in mind as we go through this, because there is justice. There is the just response to all the crimes and all the problems that have been committed over the last few decades. And then there's with any big change like this, you have an opportunity for opportunists to come in, for people who have no idea what they're doing, but they say the right thing. And I'm not saying anyone in particular is this, but just in general, they say the right thing, they get put in a place, and then they, they're not the right person for that job. And with things like the intelligence agencies, the FBI, the State Department, these apparatuses that are so deeply involved and have been so deeply involved over 60, 70 years in kind of shaping the globe and how that all works, you do have to be a little bit careful in exactly how you fix things. It's not just a wrecking ball. You got to be careful because there are people in every other country that are hoping that you just take a wrecking ball to the whole place. The walls are down, and now they get a chance at having their say. And some of those people are enemies, and some of those people are allies. And there's, you never know. So you got to be careful with that. That being said, I'm sure everyone's waiting with bated breath for the for the guillotines to get pulled out.
I'll tell you, as you know, we're all on social media all the time and talking to friends and all around the perimeters and, a few steps into all of these various stories and things. And I'm not sure proceed with caution is the thing that's at top of mind right now.
Exactly. And that's why I thought I'd bring it up, because I'm seeing a lot of commentary. There's even suggestions going out there. And I'm like, well, if you put that through, have you thought 3 steps down what that affects? It's like when you're playing chess. If you move your knight, what was that knight protecting? Right? Mm-hmm. You got to be aware of that before you make. And that's the downside of populist movements. Of course, in this case, you had the issue where there was no other way to overthrow 70 years of Marxist creep than to get everybody aware of it and everybody united behind changing it. So now we have the dual responsibility of making massive change and trying not to make massive mistakes along the way.
Sure, yeah.
And I think in this kind of a case, Trump's doing a pretty good job picking people. I mean, he's picking people he knows. He's picking people he has worked with in the past. And I think he's picking people probably right now as wrecking balls. And then perhaps later on, he's going to institute the kinds of brains that can strategically rebuild.
Sure.
It could be a case of that. It's also probably a situation where, how Trump negotiates. It's like, I'm going to ask for all of this. Canada, you're going to be the 51st state if you don't, if you don't play ball with us.
I thought of you exactly the second I saw that. I'm like, oh gosh, I got to hear Arthur. I don't think many Canadians would actually mind being the 51st state.
It's a huge controversy here right now on Canadian Twitter. Half the people are like, hell yeah, let's do it. And the other half of the people are, how could you possibly do that? And so
are the people who are the Canadians who are saying, oh, how could you possibly do that? How could you possibly want that? Are they beginning by saying, sorry? Are they... We Americans love to call Canada
that's a whole other conversation.
America's hat. Do you look back on this again? You just said something triggered a thought in my head. There would have not been really the possibility of what happened, a month ago. It's hard to believe it's a month ago on Election Day. That could not have happened. I mean, the shift, the vibe shift, everything moving, as we were talking about with Klaver before in the earlier part of the show, the vibe shift, county after county, every single state, everything, every demographic group just moving towards the red. If I think it that way, some in varying degrees, a little less, a little more, but whatever. But there was a vibe shift. Kamala, thanks for the word. Came in handy here in the post-election analysis. My thought and your response, my thought is that doesn't happen if 2020 didn't happen. Number two, if Trump would have won re-election in 2020, I don't know that I don't know there would have been like this massive change. Would he have fired Christopher Wray as head of the FBI? I mean, heck, he appointed him. Would he have, gotten rid of Bill Barr as Attorney General before? I mean, there's a lot of things here. Like, would there have been this giant, wide eye-opening experience had 2020 gone in Trump's favor, and we just sort of continue the mediocre slide into whatever with the deep state sort of running things and Mitch McConnell there? I don't know. In hindsight now, 2020 may have been the best thing that actually happened to America, despite all the COVID sufferings and economics and all of that and everything, because I don't know that the country would have been able to continue on that slide and ever pulled out of it.
Well, to make a dig at Americans for a second, but this applies to everybody. There was a general back in World War II, and it might have been Montgomery. I could be wrong on that, but it was one of those guys, the French or the English general, and he was saying the Americans will always do the right thing when every other option has been exhausted.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a case of that. Maybe. I mean, to be fair, you guys are kind of the leaders on this change, on this pushback against the neoliberal establishment. So in this case, I don't think that was the process. But to your point, look, the Return of the Jedi is nowhere near as good if the Empire didn't strike back first.
There you go.
If you're writing a story and you want a climactic finale that really really grasps emotion, you need to have a dark hour before the dawn.
Yeah.
And to be honest, nothing. it almost couldn't be better if you wrote it yourself, right? You put in someone who's so brain dead, and just one fiasco after another for 4 years. Just if you could do something wrong, they did it to the maximum capacity.
Yeah,
I
mean,
I don't know.
Kicking guys out of the military because they wouldn't take take the vax, requiring masks, saying you're going to pay back student loans, going on telling everybody the crime numbers are better and they're improving while, people are running for their lives in major cities, from immigrants, raiding stores and shooting people. I mean, you're right. There is, I think it's kind of endemic that whenever evil starts to pull ahead or seemingly pull ahead in the giant scheme of things, it never does. But in the day-to-day of people experiencing it does. It always starts to overreach. And it seems like Biden's years, it's an overreach. The lies of the media exposed, all of this stuff is a reaction to that. Would social media have taken off the way it has if there wasn't mountains of crap and evil and lies and propaganda to report on? As just one example, now Trump's coming in and he's bringing his hammers with him, and I'd suggest those guys get their passports in order and get the hell out.
Buy themselves a few more years. Yeah, it's look. Some of the biggest critiques that the left or that the other side has against his choices are that they're loyalists.
So
I'm not sure how that's a critique. If you don't like him, sure, but I mean, okay, they're loyalists. Great. That's exactly who you'd put in place if you're trying to clean house.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The backlash against so many of these picks really just kind of confirms why they're such great picks to begin with. I know we've said that before on different shows, but I mean, it's kind of a rule of thumb at this point.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, my only real concern in all of this is just that little bit of I'm a very defensive minded person. When I played sports, I played defense. I'm always thinking, okay, what is this going to do on the back end? And so that's where my concern comes in with, hey, yes, we are very, very happy to move forward on this. We're very excited to make this change. Mm-hmm. Be careful. You could slip a lot of nonsense in excited upheaval, and crowds aren't known for their brilliant logic and their decision-making ability. That would be my concern, especially
by the mob, but you want your change to be fueled by the feelings of the mob, because the mob has been screwed over for decades now.
Exactly. And it's going to be interesting to see how each of these people takes on their role in these departments. Mm-hmm. One of the big concerns for Kash Patel, so Trump tried to float him for FBI director in his first term, mm-hmm. and it was actually blocked by Bill Barr, who was saying that, look, for the FBI, you need someone who's come up through the ranks. You can't just put in someone new from outside. And I think a lot of Trump's appointees, if they get past the Senate, are going to face that issue. They're going to have to win over the hearts and minds or clean house and get good people in place
Yeah, or,
in those departments. So it's a big
combination of
responsibility.
both. I mean, remember, you get to like the rank and file FBI dudes who just get up every day, you know, strap on their bulletproof vest and their holster, and they go out and they just want to do good. Those people are going to welcome. I mean, you know, Josh Hawley, Jim Jordan. We're constantly talking about, you know, people in the deep state coming to them and blowing the whistle that, you know, some of the middle management is across the board, you know, in the AG's office and the FBI, of all these places, particularly the law enforcement areas and the intelligence communities, because that's where a lot of the damage has been done. The lower ranks and into the middle ranks, they're all down with this. Be interesting to see their voting patterns. It's that top tier that needs to go. And I agree that you know, Kash Patel, I mean, you know, nobody could come into any of these agencies and just wave a magic wand and expect everything's going to change. They have to get rid of some people. But here's the difference between Trump 1.0 and 2.0 and his appointees on both sides. Trump 2.0 knows that. They know that. And they are going to do it. They've already said it. They're clearing people out. So, a lot of hope there. I mean, look, if the building just collapses on its own weight, you don't need to bring the wrecking ball.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and you could tell from a lot of his picks that that his focus is cleaning up intelligence. Yeah. I mean, Kash Patel was talking about the intelligence portion, particularly of FBI. Now, he has an intelligence counterterrorism background, so that could be part of the reason. But even Trump's pick for DNI, Trump's pick for all of these different roles, you can tell there's something going on there.
Yeah. I think they have their finger on the pulse. Is everything going to be perfect? Of course not. But they understand. I mean, this is an entirely different type of temperature that Trump 2.0 has. It's like, wow, we you know, they tried to kill me twice. They tried to kill me. We're about to kill them. As you said, if you're going to strike at the king, you better make sure you kill him. And doesn't look like they've done such a good job of that, actually, right now. Arthur, closing thoughts.
Thank God.
We're going to go to a really cool little story that a lot of people don't really know about. Go ahead.
I'm just very excited to see what comes of all of this. Again, there's going to be a lot of change. Some of it's going to be uncomfortable, and I think for the voters, for the American people, it's very important that you just keep an eye on what's changing and make sure it's in the best interest of America. America first. That's it.
That's it. That's how it goes. All right, Arthur, coming to us from the great white north of Canada. Excellent, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for coming on. All right. Before we leave you today, pretty cool thing here. Actually, a couple of cool things, both of them from Paris. First, Trump has announced the following. It is an honor to announce that I will be traveling to Paris, France on Saturday, this coming Saturday, to attend the reopening of the magnificent and historic Notre Dame Cathedral, which has been fully restored after a devastating fire 5 years ago. President Emmanuel Macron has done a wonderful job ensuring that Notre Dame has been restored to its full level of glory, and even more so, it will be a very special day for all. That's pretty cool. That's pretty darn cool. But here's something even more cool, I would say. Look, as Trump said, Notre Dame in Paris is reopening after 5 years of a near total destruction by that fire back in 2019. What a lot of people don't know is deep within the cathedral, Notre Dame, has been kept for centuries the treasure of our Lord's crown of thorns. It was rescued by a fireman during the blaze. This is what it looks like. Its reeds are held together with gold wires and sealed inside a glass case. In 1238, King Louis IX purchased the crown from his cousin, who was the Byzantine emperor. Baldwin II, that was his cousin, was forced to trade it for an army to save his collapsing empire. So it went from Constantinople to Paris, and it's been there ever since. How did it get to Constantinople in the first place? A little hard to follow there. Lots of this stuff gets kind of lost in history, but The crown itself is first mentioned in the 5th century Jerusalem, where it was venerated as the glory of the city. When and why it moved to Constantinople, we don't really know. Today, there are no thorns. This is kind of interesting. There's no thorns left on the crown. They're all plucked off one by one as gifts over the centuries, and then they were spread across Europe. We're never going to be able to really confirm whether this is the actual crown of thorns that was on our Lord's head during his passion. But look, King Louis certainly thought it was. He paid, get this, a year of France's budget to get a hold of that crown of thorns, and then he built Sainte-Chapelle to house it in. That's the whole purpose. That beautiful, all glass practically, chapel was built. After that, it was moved to Notre Dame Cathedral for safekeeping during the French Revolution. That is and it's been there ever since, and rescued from that 2019 fire. You got to love history. It's really cool. For all that information, those pictures and things, we want to say thank you and courtesy to Culture Critic and his X account for that post. That wraps us up for today. Hope you enjoy the revamped In-Depth. Leave a comment if you like it, and please support our work by clicking on the provided link to donate. So, coming to you from Houston, Texas, home of soulsandliberty.com, I'm Gary Michael Vorse signing off. God love you.